I'm Lisa Rubel from Love to Color My World, and I'm here today to walk you through the A Table for Two project. This is a free downloadable pattern when you buy a 3-yard bundle from Sit and Sew Fabrics, and it will allow you to make a table runner and 2 coordinating placemats, and that includes the backing and binding as well. So you've got everything you need except for batting and a little fusible web to put this project together. Let's take a look at the project. We've got the table runner, which has 3 blocks, each with a little applique heart in the center. And then we've got 2 coordinating placemats. And you can make this project quickly and easily, and I'll walk you through each step of the way. Now the Table for Two pattern makes 1 table runner and 2 matching placemats. But both the placemats and the table runner use the same block, so we'll be making 5 of the same block. The first thing we're going to do is to prepare our little fusible applique hearts that will go onto the finished block. I've got 4 of mine cut out here. I've got the 5th one traced onto the fusible web ready to cut out, and I wanted to share a quick tip with you. So a lot of times when you're working with fusible web, it can be tricky to pull the paper backing off without fraying your nice clean cut edge. So what I like to do is to, before I cut my shape out, is to peel back my paper from the fusible web past my drawn line. And that way, after I have my shape cut out, when I go to pull the paper off, I've got that lifted edge and I don't have to worry about any fraying. So keep that in mind when you're making your heart shapes. So we'll be making 5 blocks for this quilt, and they're really quick and easy to put together. For each one, you start out with the center square, and for 4 of them, that will be this medium print fabric. And then we're going to sew a frame around it. So we'll add strips to both sides, and you'll pin these and sew them on, and then press. I like to press out away from my center square, and then after those are put on, then you'll add a strip at the top and the bottom to complete your frame. And same thing, after those are added on, you can press the seams out from the center square. So we'll be making 4 in this color combination with the medium square in the center and the dark frame, and then 1 block that will be a dark center square and a medium frame. And then we'll add the applique hearts. Now if you look at the pattern, the hearts in the table runner go on a diagonal with the square on a diagonal, and the hearts for the placemats go on straight. So we're going to start out with the hearts for the table runner, and that's going to be 2 of the dark outer blocks and then the 1 opposite block. So I'm going to set one of those up on my ironing board. Take one of my hearts. I've got the paper off the back already, and find the center and then press it in place. Now these hearts are really the cherry on top of the sundae that make this table runner set so cute. So for our last 2 blocks, they're for the placemats rather than the table runner, so we're going to fuse the heart on a little bit differently. Instead of fusing it with the block on point, we're going to keep it straight and fuse it on that way. Make sure it's centered in that square as much as possible, and fuse it in place. And we'll be making 2 of these, 1 for each placemat. And then the next step is to use a decorative stitch to go all around the outside of the heart. I'm going to use a darker thread so that I have kind of an outline effect, and you can do it with either a zigzag stitch or buttonhole or even a straight stitch if you want, but have some fun adding a little thread element to your 5 blocks. I've got my blocks all appliqued. You can see I've got a cute little zigzag stitch around each of my hearts. And now it's time to assemble our table runner top. So once you've got your square cut into quarters, we're going to lay it out. We're going to start out, use I'm going to grab the 3 blocks that are on the diagonal and save the placemat ones for down the road. And we're going to lay out a block and then a setting triangle with the short edge aligned with our block, and a second setting triangle, same way. And then for this second block, I'm going to use the one with the alternate color combo with the dark in the middle, and I'm going to rotate it so that one heart is pointing up and one heart is pointing down. And then put out 2 more triangles, and I know I'm running out of room with the camera. You can see this on your quilt layout diagram as well. And then the last block pointing the same direction as the first. So when you go to join these pieces, you're going to join them in diagonal rows. So I'm going to sew the triangle to the block here, and this triangle, and these 2 triangles to this block, and then up here the triangle to the block. If you notice, the triangles are actually longer than the block, and that's okay. We'll be trimming when we're done. So what you want to do is line up the right angle of the triangle with your block. So in this case, then your tip will extend beyond. So in this case, I would line up those raw edges right there and pin it here. So you'll have tips that extend, and that's just fine. We will trim those later. So get your blocks and setting triangles sewn into rows. So it is really easy to accidentally sew your triangle to the wrong side of your block or the wrong side of the triangle. So as you do each step in the assembly process, just make sure you're following along with the diagram so that you know you're sewing all the pieces in the right order. You don't have to worry about having to unpick some, pick some out, and then re-sew them together. So when you have your diagonal rows sewn together, I've got the first 2 right here. You may look at it and try to figure out what you're going to line up because of those oversized triangles. And it's really easy. We're going to, just like if we were doing a 4-patch, where we've got the 4 separate pieces with 2 seams. So we're going to align these 2 seams right here, and wherever the triangles fall out to the edge is just fine. So if you have all your seams pressed toward the triangles, so that would mean they'd be going in opposite directions. And when you go and lay these 2 pieces on top of each other, the seams will nest, and you can align the seams together, and the allowances will go in opposite directions. So I've got a pin right at my seams so that they stay together, and I'll put a couple more in out on the triangles. Now these short edges of the triangles are where the fabric is the stretchiest. So this is a spot where you want to put in a couple extra pins so that it doesn't stretch too much as you're stitching. And then do the same on this side. That long edge of your triangle that will be facing out is the one cut with the grain of the fabric, so it will be less stretchy. So again, you'll just sew to the tips of these triangles, and don't worry about where they do or don't match up, because we'll cut them off later when we trim the table runner, the outside edge of the table runner. So I'm going to sew these 2 diagonal rows together, and then I'll add this 3rd one in the same way, matching up my seam between the triangle and the block, with what I've got here already. So I've got my whole table runner top assembled. Before I press, what I am going to do is trim off the triangles that are behind the seam. We don't need those. I think there's just 2 of them, 1 on each side, to trim off. And the rest we will trim after the machine quilting. So here you can see that my points of these setting triangles do still go past the block, and we will trim that as needed after the quilting is done. But for now, leave it like that, and we've got this fun little table runner that we put together in no time at all. So the next step is to put it together with your backing fabric and your batting and quilt it however you'd like. And then let's take a quick look at how to trim up your table runner after it has been quilted. So I'm going to start out at one of the ends, and align my ruler with the raw edge of my block and trim. Then I'm going to move to the long edge, and you want your line to be 1/4 inch past the tip of the block. So I'm going to line it up with these two and check to make sure with the third one that it is in the right spot. And I'm going to start cutting and then move it down and align it and continue cutting. So do that on both of the long edges, and then on the points on the end, trim up with the raw edge of your block, and your table runner will be ready for binding. So your table runner's in great shape. Let's talk about the placemats now. We've got the 2 leftover blocks where the heart was appliqued straight onto the block. And we're going to add another framed row using the light fabric. So we'll be adding short pieces to opposite sides and then the longer pieces to the top and bottom. And after that's done, the last piece to make these rectangles is to add a medium strip to both sides. And that will be our finished placemat top once all of those pieces are stitched together. And then just like the table runner, you can layer the backing fabric, which is cut from the medium fabric for each placemat, with batting and your placemat top, and baste those layers together, and then quilt your placemat however you want and use the dark binding strips to bind your placemats, and then you'll be ready to use the whole set. So let's take a look at our finished project. We've got our table runner with the 3 blocks in the center and the setting triangles all quilted and bound. And then we've got 2 coordinating placemats that are exactly the same as each other. This table for 2 collection will be a great way to freshen up your table when you have dinner with that special someone, or even just for breakfast or a little coffee break. And remember that the pattern for making this project is downloadable for free when you purchase a 3-yard bundle from Sit and Sew Fabrics. And if you do make our table for 2 pattern, we hope that you'll share the picture of your finished project with us, either on our Facebook page or tag us on Instagram, because we'd love to see what you put together.